the bank's automated voice said my name. 3 times before I understood what it was telling me. This call is regarding account holder Vivian Colette Harmon. If you're not, Vivian Harmon, please hang up. I was standing in my kitchen at 6:47 in the morning, still in my robe, holding a coffee mug that was getting cold. I almost hung up. I almost said wrong number and went back to my morning like it was any other Tuesday. I didn't hang up. That phone call was the beginning of the worst 4 months of my life. And it started like so many disasters do, with someone I trusted completely. Someone who had my whole history inside her head. My address at 16. The name of my first dog. The last 4 digits of my social security number, which she'd watched me write on a forum once when I was 22 and apparently never forgot. My younger sister. I'm not going to use her name here. I'm going to call her what she was to me for 31 years before I found out what she'd done, my sister. Because the name doesn't matter. What matters is that she smiled at my wedding. She held my hand when our mother had her hip replaced. She called me every Sunday morning for a decade, and somewhere in between all of that, she borrowed my identity like it was a sweater she forgot to return. The loan officer's name was Mr. Dillard. He had the kind of voice that makes you feel like you're already in trouble. Flat, careful, no wasted syllables. Miss Harmon, we've been attempting to reach you regarding a personal loan opened in your name 14 months ago. The account is currently past due by 112 days. As of this morning, the outstanding balance is $86,400. I set my coffee down. I don't have a personal loan with your bank. A pause. The account was opened online using your social security number, your date of birth, your home address, and a copy of your driver's license. The primary email on file is he read me an address I didn't recognize, and the linked phone number is not the one you're calling from. Asked him to read me the email address. Again, I wrote it down on the back of a grocery receipt that was sitting on the counter. I recognized the format, not the exact address, but the way it was constructed, the combination of letters, the way the numbers were placed. I had seen that pattern before. I'd seen my sister use a variation of it when she was setting up a new account for something years ago, laughing about how she always used the same formula so she wouldn't forget. I didn't say anything to Mr. Dilworth about that. What I said was, I need to file a fraud report. I need to speak to someone in your fraud department today, and I need a complete transaction history for that account from the day it was opened. He asked if I wanted to be transferred now. Yes, I said, but first, can you tell me if anyone has made payments on this account at all in 14 months? He checked. 3 payments, all made from the same external bank account, all exactly 47 days apart, like clockwork, until they stopped. I wrote that down too. Here's what I knew about my sister at that point in my life. I knew she was 34. I knew she'd been between jobs since the spring when the company she worked for restructured and let her go. I knew she was behind on her rent. She'd mentioned it once, casually. The way you mention a headache that you're not really worried about. I knew she'd asked our parents for money twice in the last year, and I knew they'd given it to her both times without telling me until later, which stung a little, but I let it go. I knew she was having a hard time. I did not know that. A hard time had apparently translated into opening a fraudulent loan in my name, charging $86,000 over 14 months, making 3 token payments to keep it out of collections long enough to buy herself time, and then going silent when she ran out of ideas. I found all of that out over the following 3 weeks, and I found it out the hard way, not because my sister came to me, not because she confessed, not because anyone in my family decided that honesty was worth the discomfort. I found it out because I am meticulous. I have always been meticulous. And when someone sets a fire in my house, I do not wait for the fire department. I pulled the records myself. The fraud department at the bank was helpful in the way that large institutions are helpful when they are also covering their own exposure. They opened an investigation. They flagged the account. They sent me a 37-page document request by email, which I completed within 48 hours, including a notarized affidavit, a copy of my actual driver's license, a utility bill, and a statement detailing everything I knew, which at that point was not enough yet. While I was doing all of that, I was also doing something else. I was going back through every financial account I owned, every credit card, every store card, every utility account, my car insurance, my health insurance portal, my Amazon account purchase history, my student loan servicer, every single place where my social security number or date of birth could be used as a key. It took me 11 days. I kept a spreadsheet, color-coded. By the time I was done, I had found 4 additional accounts I hadn't opened, 2 credit cards, a second personal loan at a different institution, and a buy now, pay later account at a furniture retailer. Total exposure, $123,000. Give or take, spread across 14 months of charges, furniture, electronics, a used car purchase. Though I couldn't figure out whose name. The car was actually registered to not yet. Groceries and gas, hundreds of times, which told me this wasn't a one-time act of desperation. This was a lifestyle. Someone had been living at least partially on my financial identity for over a year. I called my mother on a Thursday evening after my husband left to take our daughter to soccer practice. I wanted to be alone for the conversation. I had learned by then to want to be alone for conversations where I didn't know what I was going to hear. I need to ask you something, I said, and I need you to be straight with me. She said, of course. Does my sister drive a gray Kia Sportage about 2 years old? A pause that lasted 2 seconds too long. Where did you hear about that? That was all I needed. My mother's version of events delivered over 40 minutes in a voice that kept pitching upward with each new detail, like she was surprised by her own story. Was this my sister had come to her in distress about 8 months ago? She confessed that she had borrowed my mother's word, not mine. I want to be very clear about that. Borrowed some of my information to get through a rough patch. She promised she was paying it back. She'd made a plan. She just needed a little more time. She begged my mother not to tell me because she knew I would be upset, and she was already working on fixing it, and there was no reason to cause problems in the family when the whole thing was almost solved. My mother believed her. My father, I found out later, also knew. He had known for 6 months. He had also, separately from my mother, given my sister money twice in the last few months. Not to repay me, as it turned out, but to make those 3 token payments to the bank to keep the account from going to collections to buy more time. They had all been managing this together without me for the better part of a year. I sat with a phone in my hand after my mother stopped talking, and I thought about every Sunday morning call, how are you doing? How's the family? How's work? Every conversation where I had answered honestly because I thought we were honest with each other. I thought about the one time about 10 months ago when I mentioned offhandedly to my sister that I'd noticed a weird inquiry on my credit report and I couldn't figure out where it came from. And she'd said so calmly, so kindly, oh, that happens. Sometimes identity thieves just try random numbers. You should put a freeze on your credit, just in case. She had looked me in the eye and told me to protect myself from her. I didn't say any of this to my mother. I said, thank you for telling me. I have to go. Then I sat at my kitchen table for a very long time. When my husband came home with our daughter, I was still sitting there. He took one look at my face and told our daughter to go wash up. Then he sat across from me and waited. That's what I love about him. He knows when to wait. I told him everything, all of it. The loan, the credit cards, the car, my parents, the Sunday calls, the Conversation about the credit inquiry. I talked for almost an hour. He didn't interrupt me once. When I finished, he said, "What do you need from me?" "I need you to not call anyone in my family tonight. I need to think." He said, "Okay. And I need you to understand that I'm going to do this myself. I'm going to handle it, and it's going to be ugly, and I'm not going to make it easy for any of them. Can you support me in that?" He said, "Yes." That was the night everything changed. Direction, because up until that point I had been reactive, finding damage, cataloging damage, trying to understand the shape of the thing that had been done to me. But sitting at that table in that quiet kitchen, I made a decision. I was going to build a case, not just for the bank's fraud department, not just to clear my credit. I was going to build the kind of case that meant my sister could not minimize this, could not charm her way through it, could not let our parents absorb the consequences for her. One more time, I was going to make sure that when this was over, every institution that needed to know the truth would know it documented, sourced, and time-stamped. I had 3 things in my favor. I'm an accountant. I know how to read financial records. And I had been unknowingly building evidence for months without realizing it. Every time I checked my credit, every account log and notification I'd saved in a folder out of habit, every piece of paper I'd kept because I keep everything. I opened my laptop. I started a new file, the detail that broke the case open. The one tiny thing my sister had forgotten was the IP address. When you open an account, online the financial institution logs the IP address of the device used to complete the application. I didn't know this was something I could request, but the fraud investigator at the second bank, a woman named Ms. Osei, who was the most competent person I spoke to through this entire process, who deserves a raise, who I will remember for the rest of my life. Ms. Osei told me quietly at the end of our 3rd phone call, "You can request the originating IP data as part of your fraud affidavit package. Not all branches will give it to you without a subpoena, but some will, especially if you have a police report number." I filed a police report the next morning. I had been reluctant to do it. I won't pretend otherwise. Filing a police report meant this became official in a way that couldn't be walked back. It meant my sister's name would be in a document with words like fraud and identity theft next to it. It meant our family's private disaster would have a case number. But I thought about Mr. Consents, Dillard's voice on the phone. I thought about a $123,000. I thought about my daughter, who was 9, and whose college fund I had been quietly adding to for 3 years, and what I would have told her if I'd had to. Stop. I filed the report. The detective assigned to the case was a methodical, unhurried man who clearly had seen every variety of family fraud that exists. He didn't react to any of the details with surprise. He just took notes and asked follow-up questions. Your sister had access to your driver's license number and social security number? She knew, both from years of being in my life. She watched me fill out a shared lease application when I was 22. She could have remembered it. She's always had a good memory for numbers. And your parents were aware of the fraud for approximately 6 to 8 months? Yes. Did they benefit financially? I don't believe so. I believe they were protecting her. He wrote something down. That may still constitute a problem for them, depending on how the DA looks at it. I nodded. I had known that was a possibility when I filed the report. I had sat with it for 2 days before I walked into that station. I understood what I was doing 3 weeks after I filed the police report. Miss Osei called me back. The originating IP addresses for all 4 fraudulent accounts traced to the same residential internet service account. The service account was registered to my sister's apartment. The applications have been completed over a period of 4 days, 14 months ago. 2 of them at 11 o'clock at night, 1 at 6 o'clock in the morning, 1 on a Sunday afternoon. She had done it from her kitchen table or her couch. Somewhere familiar and comfortable where she felt safe. My husband held my hand while I processed that, the other piece of evidence, the one I had found myself. In my own records, the one that made even the detective say, when I showed it to him, was simpler. My sister had used an email address she thought I didn't know, but when she'd opened the email account years before, she'd used it for the fraud she listed. An alternate recovery address, a backup. Contact in case she was locked out. That backup contact was my email address. She had listed me as her account recovery contact, which meant that at some point early in the life of that email account, long before the fraud, Google had sent me a notification. ML address has listed you as a recovery contact. I had probably ignored it or glanced at it and forgotten it, but I keep everything, remember? I keep everything in a folder labeled miscellaneous account notices. It was right there, dated, showing the email address she thought I didn't know, connected directly to my contact information. She had anchored the identity she was hiding from me directly to mine. When I showed the detective, he looked at it for a long moment. Then he said, she made it easier. She did, I said. My sister was arrested on a Wednesday morning. She called me from the police station, not to confess, not to apologize, but to ask me to come get her. She still thought I was on her side. She still thought the family arrangement was holding. She had not yet realized that the arrest had happened because of me, specifically because of me, because I had spent 4 months building a documented case that left no room for minimization. I did not go get her. My mother called me 20 minutes later, crying. She's your sister, my mother said. She made a mistake. Families don't. She took out $123,000. In my name, I said. She made 3 token payments to keep it out of collections while she bought furniture and a car and groceries for over a year. She looked me in the eye and told me to protect my credit. She made a mistake in the same way someone who sets a house fire and then hands you a garden hose has made a mistake. My mother started to say something else. I love you, I said, but I am done managing her consequences. I am done having this conversation. I hung up. The criminal case took 7 months to resolve. My sister was charged with identity theft, wire fraud, and 2 counts of bank fraud. She took a plea. She received 30 months of supervised probation, a requirement to complete a financial crimes restitution plan, and a civil judgment against her for the full amount, interest included, which will follow her credit report for the next 7 years. My parents were not charged. The DA determined that while they had been aware of the fraud, their involvement was limited to financial support of my sister and not active participation in the scheme itself. They received a formal caution. I don't know exactly how to feel about that. I'm still working on it. The banks cooperated once law enforcement was involved. Every fraudulent account was resolved as fraud, removed from my credit history and cleared from my record. My credit score, which had dropped 93 points over 14 months without my knowledge, recovered over the following year. I did not speak to my sister for 18 months after her plea. When we eventually spoke, not because I reached out, but because we were both at my aunt's house for a reason that had nothing to do with either of us. She told me she was sorry. She said it the way people say things when they've been coached to say them, carefully, without eye contact. She said she'd been in a bad place and she hadn't been thinking clearly, and she knew it didn't excuse anything. I told her I believed she was sorry she got caught. I told her that if she ever used anything connected to me again, my name, my information, my history, I would pursue every legal avenue available to me without a second thought. I told her I hope she got her life together. Then I walked to the other side of the yard and talked to my aunt about her garden. Here's what I want you to know if you're listening to this and you're in the middle of Something like this if you've gotten a call from a bank you don't recognize, if you found an account you didn't open, if something just feels wrong and you don't know what it is yet, document everything. Write down every phone call, the date, the time, the name of the person you spoke to, the case number if there is one. Request the paperwork, every piece of it, even if it takes weeks to arrive. File the police report, even when it like a betrayal, because protecting yourself is not a betrayal. Keep every email, every notification, every piece of mail you can't. Immediately explain. The thing that saved me was not being smart or being organized, though it helped that I am both of those things. The thing that saved me was that I did not wait for someone else to fix it. I did not wait for my sister to come to me. I did not wait for my parents to decide the situation was bad enough to be honest about. I did not wait for the bank to clear my name out of the goodness of their institutional heart. I built the case myself. And when I walked into that detective's office with a color-coded folder and 4 months of documentation, I was not a confused victim asking for help. I was a woman who already knew what had happened, who had already found the evidence, who was simply there to make sure the right people had it. My sister forgot one tiny detail. She forgot that the person whose identity she stole had been meticulous her entire life. She forgot that I keep everything. People have asked me after hearing this story whether I regret filing the police report, whether I wish I had handled it quietly, kept it inside the family, given my sister one more chance to fix it herself. And I understand why they ask. It sounds like the compassionate question. It sounds like it comes from a good place. But here's what I've come to understand about that question. It isn't really about compassion. It's about comfort. It's about the discomfort people feel when they watch someone refuse to absorb a consequence on behalf of someone else. We are so conditioned to believe that loyalty means protection, that loving someone means standing between them and the damage they've caused, that when a person steps aside and lets the damage land where it belongs, it looks cold. It looks like betrayal going the wrong direction. It isn't. What my sister did wasn't a moment of weakness. It was 14 months of daily decisions. Every time she swiped a card connected to my name, every time she transferred money into an account I didn't know existed, every Sunday morning she called me, asked how I was doing, listened to me talk about my daughter's soccer games and my husband's work stress and my own quiet little life, and said nothing. That isn't a mistake. That is a sustained choice made over and over again by someone who understood exactly what she was doing and decided her comfort was worth more than my security. I didn't ruin her life by filing that report. She built the conditions for that outcome herself, one transaction at a time. I just stopped being the wall between her and those conditions. That's the thing about consequences. They don't actually go away when someone else absorbs them. They just get redistributed. My parents had been redistributing my sister's consequences for years, alone. Here, a quiet conversation there, a decision to protect her from information. That was mine to have. And every time they did that, they didn't help her. They just delayed the reckoning and made it larger. What I learned, what I am still learning is that intelligence without courage is just cleverness. I was organized. I kept records. I knew how to read a financial document and build a timeline, but none of that would have mattered if I hadn't been willing to walk into a police station and say clearly and without softening it, this person stole from me. And I want it documented. That took something different from being smart. That took deciding that my own life was worth defending with the same energy I'd spend my whole life extending to other people. And I want to say one more thing because I think it matters. I did not do this out of anger. By the time I filed that report, the anger had burned itself out. What? Replaced it with something quieter and more durable, a kind of clarity. I knew what had happened. I knew what was right. And I knew I was right. And I knew that if I walked away, quietly, I would spend years wondering what I had taught my daughter about what she deserved. She was 9 years old. She was watching me. The way children watch everything. Without appearing to. I wanted her to. See what it looks like when a woman knows her own worth and acts accordingly. Not with rage, not with cruelty, with documentation, with patience, and with the absolute refusal to pretend that what happened to me was acceptable. That, in the end, was the whole point.